Right, how's it going? I'm Simon and I'm going to show you how to do a sky swap and reflection in Photoshop so you can turn your photo from this to this. Alright, so you want to start off in Lightroom with the image and just do your basic adjustments on it. So push up your contrast, well, however you want to do it, but I push up the contrast a little bit, set your white balance. One thing you do want to do is if possible, blow out the sky as much as you can. So blow out your, you don't have to go too hard here, but just try and make sure your sky is a little overexposed. It's just going to make it that much easier when you select the sky in Photoshop. So Photoshop will make selections based off contrast. So if you've got a big contrast between the sky and the brickwork here or the concrete, it just makes it that much easier for it to see it, you know. So just have the sky a little bit pushed out. Lift your shadows up a bit too, just for, you don't have to do that for your final image, but just so that everything's nice and bright and visible in Photoshop, and you can tweak it from there. That's how I do it anyway. So from there, go into Photoshop. Oh, okay. Yeah, go into Photoshop. So you got your base image here, and what you want to do is select the sky. So you use the quick selection tool, hit the plus button here, and you just click and drag it through the sky a little bit, and it selects most of it in one hit. Depends on the image, but you can see here it's pretty much nailed it. But it hasn't completely got it, so that's where you got to use the refine edge tool, which is really handy. So you can see here it hasn't got the railing quite right. The window here between my legs, it hasn't nailed. A bit of the bush here. So yeah, what you want to do, you go select a mask and you use this one here, which is the refine edge tool, and you basically just run it along the areas that it hasn't got quite right. So through here, around the railing, between my legs. So it's got that sorted. You want to get this window area, just click in there, it'll sort it out for you. This bush, most of the bush is okay, but it should be able to see through some of the leaves if you just run it through there. I might even just run it along the edge of the building just to make sure. Sometimes it'll just draw a line, it won't get all those little rough edges. Which you can't see it now, but when you swap the sky in, it can become noticeable. I don't know. Look, I don't have the world's greatest computer. Sometimes it takes a while on mine to work it all out. Alright, so once you're done there, hit OK. You can see here it selected the sky. So save that. Go save selection, just name it as sky 1. Alright, you can deselect it, go into the sky that you want to use. So this is the sky obviously I want to use, and just select the sky. Your selection doesn't have to be exact, just get it as close as you can. So hit Command C, Control C, then go Control V, and there you go, nailed it. Now you got to, so now that the sky's in there, you got to go Control T on that sky layer to bring up transform, and just drag it out so it fills the frame. Another thing you want to do, make sure that the sky is lining up with the light source in your original image. So if I just make that invisible for a sec, you can see here that the sun is just around here, so you want to try and line that up with the sky. It'll make it that much more realistic because you've got a little bit of light stretching out across the building here. So if you line the light from the sky up, it's just going to look, yeah, just that much more realistic. So once you've done that, that's probably about where I'll put it, maybe down a little bit. Then what you do is you go load selection, Sky 1, which is what I saved it as before. So it selected it,
and then hit this to create a layer mask. So what a layer mask is, you're just telling it what parts of the layer you want to be able to see through and what you don't want to be able to see through. So you've selected the sky, so it just means it's only showing the sky from the original image in the top one. And you can see it hasn't quite got it. So there's pretty obviously some like there's this line running along the edge here, all around me. Yeah, it's probably worse around here. Basically what that is, it's from exposure. So the foreground is so much brighter than the sky, so you got this area, just this clean white line running between the two because it's just that much contrast there. So what you want to do is just pull down the exposure on your foreground. So hit your background layer, go curves, and from the middle of the curves adjustment layer, just pull it down a little bit. You can see that fixes most of it right up. It's pretty good there. I might even go a little bit more. Yeah, and that's pretty right. Another thing you can do, so right now the sky layer and its mask are linked, which means that if I select the sky layer and move the sky around, it's going to move the mask too. But if you unlink them, you can move the sky separately from the mask, which means you can just move it around a little bit, just to make sure you're happy with where it sits. But to me, that is pretty good. Yeah, that's fine with me. Actually, go back. Actually, no, I prefer it there. Yeah, so no, I'll just leave it there. So that's basically it for the sky. Yeah, to me that looks pretty good. What I might even do, so instead of having the entire foreground darkened, I'll lighten some of the areas. So if I play with the layer mask on that curves layer, use a brush tool with a low opacity black brush tool, you can just brighten some areas up a little bit. So if you want to brighten here a little bit, because I'm going to do the reflection down here in a minute too, so it might be a good idea to just brighten that up fractionally. Alright, so once that's done, that's the sky swap pretty much sorted. It's not quite right. Well, for me, I think it's pretty right, but sometimes what I do, so save it. Once it's saved, just go back into Lightroom and just tweak it a little bit more in there. I know you can tweak this, you can tweak it, you can do all your tweaking in Photoshop. For some adjustments, I just find it easier to do in Lightroom. So where is it? It's not these ones. It's this one here. Alright, so sometimes what I like to do is just get a bit of a radial filter happening over here where the light source is. So sometimes I like to just blow this area out a little bit, just have a little bit overexposed, just to accentuate the light source, and maybe add a little bit of color in there too, like an orange or a reddy color, and it helps balance out the two, so it makes it similar color up the top to the color down the bottom, so it just helps add to the realism of it. Besides that, I'm pretty happy with the look and the exposure, so what I'll do, I'll close that off and then go back into Lightroom and just re-import it into Photoshop. So I'll show you how to do the reflection now. Is it open? No. Right, so once you're back in Photoshop, what I'm going to do, this dry area of mud, I'm going to have the reflection sitting in that area there. So reflections are pretty easy once you've done a few. Yeah, they get really easy. So you select the part that you want to reflect, which is going to be everything from just under the building. So the sky, the subject, just getting the bottom corner of the building. So you select all that, and then do layer via copy, and then on your new layer you go transform, flip vertical, and just drag it down. So when you've got all these purple lines coming up, that means you've squared everything off, so it lines up exactly with the other layer. There we go. So that's how you mirror it exactly, but I don't want to do that because around here it looks fake, and around here it doesn't really look alright. I mean, it's okay, but it's not ideal. So just make it invisible again. Actually, no, make it visible. Add a layer mask in there, and then invert the whole thing. So when the layer mask is all black, you can't see any of it. Then what you do is you get your brush tool, select white, and you paint in the area that you want the reflection to show. So you're adding in the white onto the layer mask, so it should start to show up around here. My opacity is real low, so I'll lift that up. There we go, about 60 or something. You can just paint it in here where you want the reflection to show. I want the subject to be visible, so I'm going to add that in. And just towards the edges of the reflection, just reduce the opacity a bit, just helps it look that much more realistic. I'm going to kill it off around here. So I wanted to make it look like it's just, you're just looking into reflection on a puddle. And that is pretty much it. That's it. Done. So you save it, go back into Lightroom, and you're good to go.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you have any questions, flick us a DM. Otherwise, I'd love to see what you come up with.